This conference will now be recorded.
April 1st, 2024, I will call this Technical Advisory Committee meeting of KTMPO to order and move to public comment. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to make a comment to the TAC? Is there anybody from the public online that wants to make a comment, Anita?
We have 13 individuals online, no public comments.
Okay. All right, moving right along. Agenda item number 3 is an action item regarding approval of the minutes from the April 3rd, 2024 meeting. This is pages 8 through 10 in your packet. Are there any revisions or changes needed to the minutes? All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Agenda item 4 is a discussion and action item regarding recommending approval of the FY 2025 to 2028 Transportation Improvement Program, or the TIP. This is pages 12 through 20 in your packet. Of course, this is our 4-year financial forecasting and planning document, and James will brief the TAC on that item.
We shared a draft of this back in March, I believe. And since then, we've had the full public comment period, 30 days, 2 public meetings. In your packet on pages 13 through maybe 20, there's a summary of the comments I received and all the notices that we posted and where we had meetings and a summary of those. There were 3 comments, I believe. 3 comments. A question about US 190 and the expansion west towards Land Passes, and that would be Interstate 14. And then an email with some comments. I think reading through these, the title was TIP 25-28, which is why we included it, but a lot of the comments are more general. Staff did respond to this individual with some additional information. Other than that, there's been no changes to the actual draft document that was presented back in March. I know, just a note about that, the years, fiscal years 27-28, there's no currently programmed projects. We are going to make one administrative amendment to move the Belton 6th Ave project back 1 year to align with a project that TechStop planning for pavement rehabilitation. But that's the only change that will happen with the draft version. That's all I have.
James, any questions for James? Nothing? All right. That is an action item, and the action we need is to consider recommending approval of the 25-28 TIP.
So moved.
Second. Who was the second? Okay. Any further discussion, comments, questions, concerns? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, agenda item 6. No, agenda item 5 is a discussion and action item regarding recommending approval of the 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, or the MTP fiscal constraints. This has been, I believe this will be the second time that the PAC has seen this. Staff did a little more research and had some additional information from what we shared last time. James?
Yeah, there's been no actual changes to the scenarios. We did reach out to TTI. Well, the short range funding is the same. Again, these targets or estimates may change once the final UTP is approved in August, but this is what I think generally they stay pretty consistent. For the long range trends model, there's no changes to the actual outputs. We did reach out to the Texas Transportation Institute and asked how often they update their model, and the answer was as soon as they can. It's pretty regular depending on information that they get. I know, Victor, that you had a question about the category 2 funding, and there were some, they said that the number is lower and it should be higher, but they were doing some internal updates, but it wasn't ready for us yet, so we won't have that scenario. I think in the future when we get an updated scenario, we can amend our forecast for the MTP constraints, but we don't have that information right now.
And if we do get additional information and it does increase, then would we go in and update our constraints in the MTP as well as our long-range funding scenario?
Yeah, I think the impact would be that project listing that we're developing, we'll be able to add more projects into that short range and long range funding sections. I think the staff's recommendation last time was to go with the default scenario, and that hasn't changed for this time. That's page 26 in your packet, that first kind of block there. And if there was a question asked that we didn't answer, or a new question, happy to answer that.
I do have a question, and I know you and I talked about this. Whether we think that funding is going to continue, but this looks like it will. So does the CAT 10, is that going to start being added to the 279 where the committee calls for it to have control over that?
Yeah, so the CAT 10 money actually goes directly to the MPO. Victor, if I'm incorrect, but it's designated for urban areas, and so it kind of goes straight to the MPO, sort of.
So the way I understand it, there's actually kind of two funding scenarios on CAT 10 CR. One of them does go directly to the MPO, and then there's another one that goes to TxDOT. It's distributed through MPOs and non-MPO areas. And there are rules they have to follow as far as which projects and which areas the money can go to, but I don't know the spell it out right now. So, but yeah, it's weird the way they're splitting it up. Yeah, there's a smaller bucket that's going directly to the MPOs, and then or a larger bucket through TxDOT.
The plan would be to fold that into our existing scoring process and just have one project call and do all the rankings separate. Because of the restrictions, we may have to do a little adjustment for the category 10 section and do like a little bit separate, but it will be the same project rankings probably.
Yeah, I think we will have to account for it in our scoring. That being said, the reason we didn't last time is because we had already gone through a competitive process, which is required by the federal government. But as we continue to move forward and these funds are stable.
I think that's the question. Yeah, what's the annual?
Now, that being said, I've heard on the national level, we don't know what that's going to look like in the future. And so I don't know how many of our eggs we should put in the CAT 10 CR bucket continuing perpetuity.
Well, we've run into personal loss because we put the Georgetown Trail with CAT 10 because they came available. And we've now had to bump it back a year for reasons. And the question was, if we have to bump it back a year, are we risking the loss of that CAT 10? Can we make it up somewhere? Or are we holding back? And I know you don't have the answer to that question right now. That's what we're on the assumption that the CAT 10 program will be there.
For sure through 2026, it'll be
Yeah.
there. It's after, and my take on federal funding is the program will still be in the legislation, just whether there's dollars put into it is the question. I think you're more involved with that than I am, but.
Yeah, and they've just started those conversations. But yeah, I would say, everything we're doing right now is projected because the CAT 10 is projected to be there. I don't see any issues with certain projects if they have to push the let date, the funding not being there.
I mean, I'd like to be hopeful that, granted, this is, a model. But you're looking at just had 17 million, 9 million for CAT 9 and 17 million for CAT 10. I mean, that's huge. That's not peanuts.
Yeah.
We can do one with that. Then again, that question may have been a little bit outside the fiscal constraint.
I think it's valid.
Breaks your conversation.
Call them up. Take them to lunch. Any other questions, comments on the fiscal constraints, the MPP? Right, that is an action item, and the action needed is to recommend approval of the short and long-range fiscal constraints.
So moved.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries. Trying to figure out how to read my own agenda here. Agenda item 6 is a discussion and action item regarding recommending approval of the 2023 project call final scores and project rankings for the 2050 MTP project list. This is pages 30 through 33 in your packet, James.
So the rankings, we've shared those rankings with you, or we shared the rankings with the TAC policy board last week for the workshop. Those rankings are included in your packet. Nothing has changed on those. As the action for this item is we do require approval or request approval of the rankings and the scoring as is. And the other component of that is the potential to add bonus points, which is outlined in the scoring guidelines. And the TAC does have that option. They can assign up to 5 points, a maximum of 5 points to a project. And there's some specific criteria, which are here. Those 3 specific criteria. And the last one is that it must be discussed openly and be documented. That's on the table, but if not, the rankings would be approved as is, and we would use these for the funding scenarios. That's all I really have.
I think my one question, James, is I know we had the Fort Cavazos ramps in here, because we weren't sure which road they were going to fund. That leaves a blank on the roadway Cat 7. Do we need to just remove that because they're going to Cat 2, or how does that work? Can we approve something with a blank roadway project ranking?
Yeah. I think we can take that one out. I guess some of that, Victor, is to you. And we don't really know the category 2 impacts, but if that scenario is chosen and all those, if something happens down the line where we fund projects with category 2 and they have to come out and be funded with something else, then we'll have to adjust the rankings, I think.
Yeah, there's just so much up there right now. It's hard to.
Do we need to assign a rank for the Cat 7 and leave it in there? Or are we good with leaving it blank?
Where are you showing the blank?
On page 32 of the packet.
32.
Yeah, it's listed there, but it doesn't.
Because it would technically be ranked 2, but since we moved it over to the Cat 2, I think we left that blank intentionally just in case the funding had to swap.
And there's actually a few projects like that are eligible for both. The Veterans Memorial Boulevard, which is in the category 7, but not in the category 2. Maybe the solution is we projects that are eligible for both and could be funded with both. We list them in both rankings, and staff will just make a note like they're being funded with category 2. And the idea of the rankings is just to show, hey, this is where projects scored and determining funding.
Yeah, just don't want it to come back and then say, well,
Yeah.
now you want to use Cat 7, it's not.
I would probably leave it on the Cat 7 list with its ranking, like you just saying. Whichever funding picks it up first, then you can always come back and back.
And we'll do that. If the committee's okay with it, we'll make that, the projects that are kind of shifting both, will, I think some of them are not in category 2 ranking, so we'll add them over there and have duplicates, make an asterisk or something, so we know that they're in both rankings.
So let me make sure I'm on track. I'm looking at scores you sent out. So we ranked the roadways. We just did one bridge. You guys broke it out. You got staff that actually, community that split them because they have different eligibility. What I'm looking at, you got it at number 2 for the,
Cat 7,
for Cat 7, and what you call the minor roadway.
and it's number 10 for Cat 2.
Right, because it's what, 53.11 points, so, and that puts it at number 10 because the major roadways are in like 57, 63, 70 range. If you have it available, do we have where all the roadways are combined? Was it like 8, 12, or 5?
Oh, if they're all combined, I think it would be 11, because it would be behind the Veterans Memorial Boulevard,
Okay.
which would be number 5. So yeah, it would drop a spot when that one is added over.
But still could be funded. And I guess what I'm getting at is, did we paint ourselves in the corner by saying rank these by which funding source they're eligible for, knowing that some of them are eligible for multiple sources?
I don't think so. I think what we did is we opened up options. Because, ultimately, at the end of the day, the TAC and the policy board, the TAC will recommend a funding scenario. I mean, the TAC could recommend to the policy board that we only fund project number 33 on the Cat 2. And if the policy board felt that was appropriate, they could do that, as long as we went through the process.
Right.
So I think all we've done is opened up options to kind of show. I just don't want us to, through a technicality, them to say, well, you're ranking, you're missing 2 or 3 projects in there. But it would, I mean, I could push everything down on the Cat 7 by 1, and then there'd be changes to the 2. But I don't think that ultimately changes the funding scenarios that we provided with our conversations and the priorities that the jurisdictions have.
And that's what I've never tried to get too stuck to is the actual ranking.
Right.
Because the ranking, it might be like, perfect example is the I-35 project, T15-06K. I've got it memorized because we've been talking about it for 15 years. It's been the number 1 project since we've been doing this ranking exercise for at least 10 years. It's been the number 1 project. It's just not the number 1 right now, for reasons that the criteria don't address. So to say that, yeah, it doesn't have the ranking, but it makes sense. It's the right now project. It's the right project for that funding source. So if you ask me, do I object to having it there? No. Do I have a problem with leaving it blank? No. No, I think we know that's important for the future I-14 corridor, going around Co, the widening of the loop, supporting Fort Cavazos, so that traffic being able to get in, knowing that Keith has been working on that intermodal facility. That is going to connect off of these ramps. So that has benefit to the folks, has benefit to the city right next to it, has benefit to the immediate region. So that concludes my soapbox speech, and I'm all for this.
I think it's a more consistent footing if we go ahead and number it, than leave it in. Like he said, we know how important it is, but just to stay consistent with our process, that should be numbered.
And just have it number, it's just numbered out.
Mhm.
That too.
I mean, it could be a 1A, 1B, or, you know, that way you don't have to go back and redo all the paperwork.
It's easy to update the 1, 2, 3. Excel does that for you fairly quickly.
And can we, I guess, can we take action for them to recommend approval with changes?
Yes.
That way we don't have to bring it back to the TAC.
Yeah.
We can update it, of course, next month. We don't have to call a special meeting or something.
It'll just be a long wordy motion.
Yeah. And we'll show an updated ranking to policy board for approval, so they'll have a clean copy.
So your proposal is to number it, to renumber, and everything else is withdrawn.
Yeah, I think the proposal is category 7 projects that are also eligible for category 2 will be listed in the category, will be added to the category 2 listing and ranked according to their score.
And all projects in category 7 will be given a
Yes.
project.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? I'll entertain a motion if somebody wants to try to make it.
I move that we approve the listings with the following amendments, that all projects be provided a project ranking number, and that all projects that are eligible for both category 2 and category 7 be reflected in each project list.
Okay.
A motion second.
Jason, did I get everything?
I'll see, yeah. I don't know. Did it. Very good.
All right, any further questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that motion carries. All right, agenda, wow, I've really messed up this agenda. Agenda 7, discussion and action item regarding recommending approval of the 2023 project call funding scenario for the FY 25 to 28 TIP and 2050 MTP. This is pages 36 through 40, James.
So we sent out, there are 3 newly proposed scenarios. Scenario 5, scenario 6, and scenario 7 that were sent out, and those were all based on scenario 4. I think we printed out a copy of scenario 4 if you picked it up at the front, just for reference and comparison. I'll try and briefly go through what the scenarios are, and then Callie, Anita, or Hope, if you're on and want to jump in and tell me I'm doing it wrong, please jump in, because they worked on it. Scenario 5 has moved the Veterans Memorial Boulevard and the Chaparral Road Phase 3 into Category 2, which has opened up more funding, and then Chaparral Road Phase 1A is being given an additional 21 million. And so Phase 1A, we had a conversation with Killeen, and that section that's close to the high school between Tremere and East Tremere is what they're looking to fund. There's currently about 10.8 million in the TIP on that project, and so they're looking for, instead of new funding for a different phase, additional funding for that phase. The cost estimate is about 54 million for construction. I know that that specific project isn't in the roadway rankings, but I think the logic is Chaparral Phase 2 is scored high, and that project is already in the existing TIP. And so instead of giving money to Chaparral Road Phase 2, let's add it to a project that's farther along and more important. I think the only other changes between 4 and 5 are the addition of the Nolan Creek off-system trail instead of the Warriors Path extension. We had a conversation with the city of Nolanville, and that trail was pretty important to them, and they were willing to give up their extension if that would help Chaparral get some additional funds. And the Belton Georgetown Rails to Trails project is not in scenario 5. You know, some of that, Sam and I had a conversation, and that's the section that's along I-35, and with the potential upcoming expansion, maybe didn't make sense to build a trail there, just have it destroyed. Yeah, when widening happens, you have to rebuild it. Scenario 6 is we want to create a scenario where no projects could be funded with category 2, or if we decide not to, what would that look like? So there's no Chaparral Road in this phase, in this scenario, but all of the other category 2 projects are funded. They're just shifted to category 7. And then scenario 7 is similar to scenario 5, except with the addition of Connell Street Phase 1. And Chaparral Road Phase 1A has a little bit less funding attached to it. Maybe missed something in there. Oh, Callie, did I miss something in my summary?
So, James, the amount shown for Chaparral Phase 3 is not what the revised.
We still not doing it right?
So I guess what I'm looking at is a PDF from yesterday. Is
Okay.
there a different one?
Yeah, the printed copy, we'll get you a printed copy.
Okay, no, those are right up on the screen.
The 5.678, yeah. Yes, and apologies about that from the PDF. Yeah. Any questions, comments?
How much does Chaparral Road already have in the TIP?
10.88 million.
So either of these would give additional or up to?
The 10.88 is not included in the proposed amounts.
So total, they would have 31.8 million for the Chaparral
In
project on.
scenario 5, correct.
Okay.
And in scenario 7, it would be 28, 27, almost 27.
So in all three, well, not in the scenario 6, because you're not programming 2. But in 5 and 7, you're showing $3 million shortfall in Cat 2. So are we risking that one of those projects is going to have to get de-scoped, or the sponsor will have to find extra money?
No, because the Cat 2 estimate we have is incorrect. There's that Loop 363 project, the Lucius McKelvey Industrial, that let with 30 million, it was a 30 million. 30 million under, right, Victor? 25?
Yeah, 30 million from our inflated estimated cost.
Yes.
Yeah, 27, 28, so yeah.
So we have another,
Okay, so that's not reflected.
that's not reflected in
Okay.
the estimate. So there's more Cat 2 funding estimated available to,
So we're not at risk of breaking ourselves with that $3 million number.
I don't believe so.
Okay. One difference, and Sam and I talked about this briefly, so I'm going to kind of put him on the spot, that I see is scenario 7 is only one with Connell Street. The rest of them are pretty similar.
James and I had some discussion about Connell was ranked 11th in overall scoring. So we'd like to see that included. So we went back and scoped that down into a phase 1 and phase 2, about $4.5 million each. So that's included in scenario 7, certainly something that we recommend in favor of. Especially if we just comfortable with that. We'd like to see that included, very important project.
And you see that as being more of a priority than the Commerce Industrial Park project?
Yes.
One change that James and Tim and I both talked about this in this past city manager is the Third Street project. We're higher than our Georgetown Trail, but the trail is our number one. And what we're trying to decide in terms of timing is how does our trail project tie in with the development project? We had asked for 6.4 million on trail phase 2, partly because that includes bridge renovation of the river. But we're going to build phase 1 start next year. If we could swap phase 2 for the trail for the Third Street sidewalks for the same option. I'm not asking the committee or the board for any more money than we would have got. But I'm going to ask for funding for a regional project that will have benefits once, we all figure out what 35 is going to do to the trail on their side. How do we get across? That's always been the question. But while we're figuring out how to get across, I think it benefits the region to at least get up to the river. And then we can defer the bridge renovation as a separate project. And we've been working, Belton has been working closely on trail alignments towards Belton, up towards the Bender Road part. There's more work and there's more money to be found somewhere. But I'd like to swap out the Georgetown Trail Phase 2 for the same dollars. So it would be that with the 8%, it'd be the 2.8 million. We would be able to build trail for 2. So if the group's okay with that. I would ask for that switch, and I guess then at some point we need to pick which scenario we seem to favor. I'll say from Temple standpoint, and then I'll shut up and let somebody else talk. I think I'm good with either 5 or 7, but I'm leaning towards 7.
I agree with Steve.
7 is certainly our preference, and I don't think we have any trouble with the County Railroad component for the Third Street sidewalk component shown there. Trail is important regionally across both cities, tying into our trail ultimately. But there are some things that need to be resolved in the meantime. So that's a good emphasis on continuity to get it that far, essentially the bridge.
And then we'll be ready
And then we'll
to
be ready.
jump over when the time comes.
Would you, if you're getting, I know the full cost is 6.4 or something like that, would you
Right.
split it into the bridge part and the other
That's what we
part
would have to do.
and send an updated cost estimate? Phase 2 and phase 2. Okay.
Right.
Just for the tip. I mean, we wouldn't need that now, but for the
Yeah.
MTP and tip portion. that would be
Yeah, we can get that. Yeah, once, if I have a solid approved scenario, then I can take that back to finance and target consultant. Revise the OPC. And then we'll get you updated numbers for 40-13C.
You ready for a motion?
Any other?
Unless there are other.
Yeah.
Bobby?
Nothing?
I think I'd like to make a motion for scenario 7 with the change to Third Street sidewalk project substituting Temple proposal for Georgetown Railroad in the amount of the same 2.8.
Second.
Motion in a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries. Yep, okay, great. All right, item number 8 is just a discussion item regarding chapters 2 and 5 of the KTMPO 2050 MTP pages 42 to 43, James.
As you know, we've been working on our 2050 MTP update. We do have two draft chapters that we've shared, chapter 2 and chapter 5. Daryl and some of his staff have worked to help us update chapter 5. And there's been a lot of transit changes, and we wanted to reflect that, have it be shown kind of where we've been, where we are right now, and where Hill Country and all their new initiatives, where they're wanting to go with transit in the region. So that's reflected in the plan, or in that chapter. And then chapter 2 kind of encompasses changes to the vision statement, value statements, and the goals and updates to those. And I actually have some slides here to go with those. These are just a few slides I'll go through pretty quickly, but the conversations that we had with the steering committee to develop these, and then staff's process. So we did look at the 2045 MTP and thought some of those were okay, but it was also a little bit out of date. And there are some missing values and things that weren't included that have been in recent transportation legislation that we wanted to add in. From there, we drafted a vision statement, and then 6 key values that are listed as statements, and then 6 goals and some strategies under those goals. This is what was in the current MTP. There's a lot of good stuff in there. And this is the newly proposed vision statement. KTMPO mobility 25 MTP. We might change it to something other than mobility. That's just what we've called it the past several times. We'll foster innovative and sustainable multimodal transportation system that prioritizes safety, bolsters economic vibrancy, and enhances quality of life for Central Texas. Now that word innovative was important from our conversations with the steering committee, wanting us to be more forward thinking rather than just trying to keep what we have. Now safety is a big thing too, so that's some things we wanted to get in there. And then here are the first 3 key values: equity, which is what FHWA has been pushing a lot lately, being fiscally responsible, again, innovation and the ability to adapt as needed. That's not a quick thing with transportation, but if we can set ourselves up to adapt quickly, we want to be able to do that plan. And then quality of life, regional coordination, public engagement, and a data component, being more forward thinking. And then here are the goals. Again, some overlap, but the attempt that we're trying to get with the goals is how can these be more specific with actionable things under each. And a lot of these are tied to performance measures that we're required to track and set targets for. And then this is a graphic, and a lot of these graphics will be they're not in the draft chapter, but they will be in the final chapter, just kind of summarizing everything for chapter 2. I know I went through those pretty quickly. We'll send out these slides afterwards so people have a chance, and not everyone's had a short time to look at the actual chapter. So please take some time to review those. We want to get feedback on if it's in the right direction and if there's things that are maybe missing.
I like it. Well done.
That's what we came out of the steering group with. Daryl Raymond was a big voice, talking especially about the innovation, thinking, future growth. If we're talking about 10, 20 years away, we should have been talking about 10 minutes ago.
Well done.
Let me go back to the first slide, just to update on the kind of what's next from here. Staff are still working on other edits to the rest of the chapters. I think those will not be, so they won't be so drastic as these two specific chapters, more reorganization, make sure flow works well, and maybe and updating information that needs to be updated. In those, we are planning to have a full draft ready by the end of May. This isn't in the slides, but in your packet on page 43, there's a proposed public engagement schedule. And originally we had talked about starting public engagement later in June, but you and I were discussing yesterday, and since our current MTP is set to lapse on May 15th, we want to try and get the new one approved as soon as possible. And so we're looking at a schedule where we start public engagement, 45-day comment period on June 3rd. That is before the June TAC meeting. We will send out a notice to the TAC and policy board beforehand with the full draft. That's part of our new PEP where we're not required to get approval beforehand. We'll still have at least 2 public meetings. And then at the June TAC and policy board meetings, we'll have opportunity for feedback and comments from TAC and policy board. And then it'll be brought back for approval in July 24th. We are looking at having an approved plan, which will shorten the elapsed time of our current MTP, make sure that there's limited impact on our TIP, and make the amendments to the TIP and getting our new TIP approved, because that's where the biggest concern is with the lapse. And that's all I have. Any questions on the schedule, public engagement schedule that's proposed? Concerns?
So, and I remember we talked about public engagement. You guys can start the public engagement, get the public feedback, put it in TAC, get our feedback and recommendations. Ultimately, it goes to policy work for the client. So today it says no action needed, but would it help? Could we make a motion and say, go ahead and tell staff to do what you're going to do anyways, or is it just a formality?
I think it's just a formality, and because we don't have a full MTP ready and we're not sharing a full MTP, normally we would have the full draft ready and say, hey, here's the draft, we've got it completed. Can we start initiate public engagement on this? But because we just have these 2 chapters, we're working towards a full draft by the end of the month.
I mean, the fact is you're keeping the committee and the board in, so it's not like you're off the reservation.
Yes.
We know what's going on. And maybe, this is the first time we've done it this way. And y'all have done a bang up job soliciting public feedback in the last year or so. So it may be that we'll hear something from the public that catches TAC's eye because we're too close to it. So this may work out for the best.
Anything else, Shane?
No, just if you've got time to look through it, those 2 chapters, and let us know if they're on target or if there's something that's missing or something that's unclear in especially that chapter 2 with our explanation of how we got to where we are. Please let us know. We want to get that feedback in before we
stay on
draft.
Oh, yeah.
That's all.
Any other questions for James? Okay, seeing none, we will move to agenda item 9, which is a discussion item regarding an update on the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant, James.
The one update I want to share is we did get approval from policy board a few weeks ago, and then the executive committee last week for that initial project application list. I think Killeen-Temple will be reaching out today or tomorrow to the entities on that list to schedule a meeting to start those project development activities, which is Temple, Killeen, Rockdale, and there's a couple others I'm forgetting, but you should be getting an email from Dan to set up a meeting with them and with staff. Callie, did you have an update on in-kind that you want to share?
Yeah, so I know I've probably bugged everybody in this room about those forms that we sign for in-kind. And we are gonna try to move to doing it like over email with DocuSign. So if you get an email from me, with that sheet, if you could just sign it and return it. If you have any questions, you can come to me and I can try to help out with whatever's going on. But hopefully that'll be a lot less hectic for everybody.
Yeah, and just one other additional note on that, we do need those forms signed before SIGCOG or MPO SIGCOG can log that time, and send it in with the report to FHWA. If we don't have the signed form, then even though we're tracking it in a spreadsheet, it's not
They take it
official.
back.
Yeah, they say, no, that doesn't count.
We speak from experience.
Somebody got their wrist slapped.
That being said, as you can see in the tracker, we are doing well, and we're way ahead of where we need to be so far with the in-kind match requirement, so. Anita, is there anything you wanted to say about the social media campaign that's happening?
I just want to thank everyone for being great community partners. Y'all are sharing the post and we're receiving responses. And so we have a whole strategy, and your communication team is linking arms with us. So thank y'all.
Any questions?
Can I make one statement? That the public meetings, the consultant will be at Rux on Main in the Temple on Saturday, May 25th. If you don't know what Rux on Main is, I won't go into it here because I would give you a sales pitch. Google Rux on Main, get with me afterward. But the consultant is going to be there Saturday morning at the Santa Fe Plaza. Highly encourage you to come out and visit us.
Anything else? All right. Agenda item 10 is a discussion item regarding public input received through April 2024. This,
We have two. I think that first comment, again, I will let y'all read through it. It was the email we received in reference to the tip. There's a couple comments in there about Harker Heights, and I guess some of those are on TxDOT right of way. And then there's another email we received asking about ride options for senior citizens or people with disabilities in the Troy area. We addressed that. Great. Did I miss anything, Anita?
Excellent. And the one with the long comment from the tip, I'll be forwarding those out to each of the jurisdictions so you can read it and respond as appropriate. Thank you, James.
all right, any questions on public input? All right, seeing none, we will move to agenda item 11, which is the director's update. This is pages 52 and 53. As you'll see on the screen and in your packet, we have the upcoming KTMPO meetings listed. All those are at 9:30 here in this room. The AMPO conference, which is the national conference, is happening in Salt Lake City this year, September 24th through 27th. If you or your representatives on the policy board would like to attend, please let me know so we can send you all the registration information. We anticipate there will probably be about 500 people from across the nation there. There will be a lot of good information. There's also, and it's not on here, I just found out about it, a National Safe Routes to School Conference in Fort Collins, Colorado. That'll be happening in October. So if you have interest in that, I'm happy to share the information. The Texas, well, I was thinking the Texas Planning Conference.
Oh, yes.
That is also happening in the beginning of September, I believe the week of September 5th. And then the other update I have really is the Texas Veterans Commission grant. This is a no-match grant that the KTMPO didn't apply for, but the COG did. We applied in conjunction with the Area Agency on Aging. We anticipate that we will receive those grant funds. We applied for $300,000 to start a pilot program to provide transportation for veterans and their families throughout the 7-county region. We'll be coordinating with the HOP to see what it looks like on their side as the transportation provider, as well as any other organizations that may be able to provide transit services to the veterans should the HOP not be able to, such as, some of those rural areas that the HOP may not be able to take care of. So we've started those conversations so we can enter into negotiations, and we should have a determination from the Texas Veterans Commission. I believe it's the 15th is when they're taking action to approve the grants. And like I said, I anticipate that we will be awarded the grant at this time.
Question on that.
Yeah.
What's the match on that?
There's no match.
That's a great grant. I have an idea.
I love a great idea.
Can we talk about that?
How much is the grant for?
Is it,
What's that?
How much is the grant for?
It's for $300,000, yeah.
is it open to cities or to the transportation to communicate with the cities or?
So right now, all we're going to be doing really is providing funding directly to the HOP. So if you're in an area that the HOP doesn't service and we need to find a transportation provider, we're happy to do that and enter into some type of agreement. But everybody in the 7-county region that's a veteran will be eligible for the program. We just have to be able to find the transportation provider that that need.
And I guess that's, I love going to talk about it now. That's what I was thinking of is, if the city wanted to add on to what the grant to contribute extra money, or if a private citizen or group, church organization, whatever, wanted to also contribute, it may not be a lot, but it's symbolic. Would you be able to receive money from either a city or a private group to add more value to that 300,000?
I think we could. I would just have to verify that to see how TBC treats that. I mean, if we had to, internally, there are some county mechanisms that we could put in place where this would be TBC grant. This is actually in support of the TBC grant, but it's a separate funding source. So I think options are there for this effort. Any other questions on that? And the last thing I have is the air quality readings, which were 56 and 51 parts per billion. Oh, and James has one thing.
A staff update. Hope, who is online right now, this will be her last TAC meeting. She is leaving at the end of the month, and share that because she's been doing calendar invites, and so you will be getting cancellation notices for the June through September meetings from her, and then you'll get a new calendar invite from Callie for those meetings. Just want to let everybody know those meetings are canceled. You'll be getting new invites for them.
Hope, thank you for everything you've done for us.
All right, anything else?
That's all I have.
All right. Agenda item 12, any member comments?
Appreciate all the work on the scenario for James.
And your patience.
Yes, Hope did a lot of work on those, so this is her last send out. Give to everybody is working on those.
Anything else? Nothing else? With no other items on the agenda, we are adjourned at 10:34.